We're going to go ahead and get started here. So I just wanted to welcome everybody to the training on how I started my mailing business. This is one of the first businesses that I started that I had some real success with, and I've kind of built off of it to grow a little marketing company located on Maui, out here in the middle of the Pacific. All right, so what we're going to do is we have quite a bit of stuff to cover. So I am going to work my way through this mind map, and if you can just kind of let me get through a section, and then I'll open up for questions. And if I haven't made anything clear or you need some more information on something, just type that into the questions box on the side, and I will get to your question as best I can. All right, so here we go. So the files that are included, I emailed out a link to a Dropbox folder that has all the files that were included with the training. I'm just going to go over what everything is real quickly, and then we'll come back to things as we use them throughout the training. So the folder that's labeled Add Sizes and Layouts, those are all of your PSD files, your Photoshop files of actual cards. There's a Photoshop file of an actual card in there with all the ads on it. And then there's also some sample layouts. It's my logo branding, just with some white spaces so prospects, clients can see the ad sizes and things like that. You can give those files to a designer, and they will be able to help you as best they can. Unless you're a designer yourself, then you can use those files to work off of, kind of like a template. But as we go through the training, I'll explain where we use those different types of those different files. So, all right, the stepping stone business. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this training and kind of explain this business is because I think that this particular business model for this mailing business is a great place to start if you're trying to get some traction, just branching into starting businesses, or even if you want to get some quick cash flow to fund some other businesses. And I call the type of business that this is, I've kind of named it a stepping stone business. It's a business that you can start with little to no money up front. It generates quick cash flow. It can be as big or as small as you want. You can just do a mailing once a year right around the holidays to raise some holiday cash, or you could do it on a more regular basis. You can offer other services. You can not offer other services. So it's really kind of at your disposal how you want the business, how far you want to take the business, and how much time you want to put into it. And you can kind of go back and forth with those. And then the thing that I love about this business is it's a quick way to generate cash to fund other projects, which is what I used it for. When I started doing this mailer, I had no professional contacts here on Maui. Our business model overview. So I have a little picture for those of you who maybe aren't clear on what this business model actually is. We're doing a mailer. This is a picture of one of my mailers. So you have 16 ads on a card, 8 ads on each side, and then we mail this postcard out to 10,000. The way I did it, we mail this postcard out to 10,000 residents in your local area, and then we go around to local businesses and sell these ad spots. So it's very, very straightforward. All of these files are in the packet that you got, so this actual PDF is in there. But to just give you a good idea of what the card looks like. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. Okay, so it's a 9x12 mailer. It's a highly targeted local mailing. So, we're going to pick a very specific area that some businesses in the area want to target, and then we're going to mail to those areas. And it's a co-op style mailing, and that benefits the businesses that we're going after because they can do a lot of direct mail. They can get a lot of mailers out for very little money, which makes it so appealing to businesses. So now our bare essentials. One of the things I mentioned in the beginning is I like this business because it takes very little to get up and running, and you really only need a few things. I recommend getting DBA because you're going to be contacting businesses. They're not going to know who you are, and I think having a professional name helps. It can just be the name of your mailer. I use Dakine Coupons. Dakine is a Hawaiian word. It kind of means like thingamajigger. It's like anything and everything. So here, my my name sort of means any and everything coupon, right? So I would get a DBA, set that up with your business account. It just makes the business owners feel a little more secure in dealing with you, gives some credibility to you, and it's really inexpensive. I mean, I think mine was like $25. So I wouldn't worry about incorporating or doing any of that other stuff right now because you just want to get some traction and get some sales rolling in. And that's what I did. I went through this Bare Essential stuff, got this up, went out, started making sales. And then once I had filled my first card, then I went back and incorporated and created a company and all that stuff. So branding for your cards. So all the files that I sent you obviously have my branding on them, and you're going to want to rebrand those. I recommend a company called Logo Nerds. They're on the internet. They did the logo that you saw on the Dakine coupon cards. They're super inexpensive. They have a business logo package. It's like $47. They'll send you 6 concept logos. You pick one, you get unlimited revisions, super inexpensive. I can't believe, I don't know how they do it for $47, but then if you use that coupon code B10 off, you'll actually get the whole package for $37. So that's just a great place to get a logo, get some branding. And then business cards. I did make up some business cards. I didn't have any professionally printed because I wanted to keep everything as inexpensive as I could when I started this. So I just went to Office Max, used some Avery glossy one-side business cards and printed my logo right on those. And that's what I started with until I had some cash flow, and then I had professional cards printed up. Sales materials. So here's the basics of really what you need. Inside your packet, there's those cards that have the ad spaces with no ads in them. They're white. When I started this up, this is what I did. I took that white card and I put my branding on it. And then I went down and I had it laminated. So I had them printed at Office Max at 9x12. I had them laminate it. So now I had this laminated card. It just had empty white spaces for ads, but it had my branding on it, with all the ad sizes. Then I had them do the same thing with one of the cards with ads on it, with my branding on it. And I had that laminated as well. And then I had some sample cards that were not mine. They were not sample cards that I had ever mailed out. I got them from, I think they were from a guy that was doing this up in New York. What I did to start right off the bat is I would walk into a business and I would take these 2 laminated cards and I would explain what I was doing. I'm going to do this mailing, 10,000 homes here in the area, and this is what the card's going to look like, but it's not going to be laminated. And these are the ad sizes. And then I would show them the sample card that didn't have my branding on it. And I would say, this is a card that was done in another area. This is what it's going to be printed like. And I never really told people that I didn't do the card in the other area, but then again, no one ever asked. So kind of want to keep it a little vague. I wouldn't say that you did a mailing in another area if you haven't, but you can just kind of get it in there without having to say you did or didn't. And then, of course, I had a little flyer, but that came a little later. First, I was just going in with the laminated cards and some sample cards. And I did mail sample cards out. If you didn't get them, let me know, and I'll get those to you. So are there any questions on the sales material or the logo, the branding? Okay. All right. So finding the customers that businesses want. One of the keys to making this mailing really work is targeting the right customers that the businesses in your area want to get a hold of. And really the types of customers that you're looking for are middle class to upper middle class neighborhoods. People that are going to have a little extra household income to spend. They are the perfect targets for these type of mailings. You definitely do not want to mail like lower income areas. It seems like, you'd think in a lower income, maybe they would use the coupons more, but it doesn't really work out that way. The upper to middle class areas will bring you the highest redemption on your coupons, which would be good for the businesses and keep them doing the mailings. You're going to have to judge in your area, how many you send residential versus how many you send business. Our mailing process, the Everydoor Direct Mail, it mails based on a route. So our route is going to have some homes in it and it's going to have some businesses. you can do residential only mailings, which is what I do. Other people I've talked to that do this type of business, they like to mail businesses because it can generate leads. I never really had a problem with that, so I just went ahead and tried to mail as many homes as I could to get as many people to come into the businesses as I could, because I knew the more results they saw, the more clients I would get and the more mailings I could do. And definitely do not do a lot of business heavy mailings. You want the majority of your cards going to residential homes, places where people are going to use them and bring them into the businesses. The best businesses to target for this. Before we talk about the best businesses to target, we need to talk a little bit about card texture. One of the things with this type of a mailing is you're going to have to kind of balance your advertisers between businesses that people use a lot and businesses that people don't. For example, a pizza place, they are going to get a lot of coupons back. Any pizza place that you put on a card is going to get a ton of redemptions. The pizza place that was on my card here on Maui, every time we would do a mailing, they would probably get 300 to 400 coupons back within a 2 to 3 week period off of a 10,000 piece mailing. So they're a high volume, like people go out to eat a lot. So restaurants, things like that are going to be high volume. Businesses like contractors, roofers, their items they're not in demand as often. So a contractor might do a mailing and he might not get a client off of the first mailing, or the client might not come till 2 months later. So when I talk about card texture, you want to balance businesses that people use all the time and businesses that are more big ticket purchases or that people don't need all the time. Because you can sell the contractor on the fact that people keep the card for the restaurant coupons, and so their branding is always there, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about with branding versus lead generation. Some businesses, they're going to be on a card and it's going to bring in a ton of people. Other businesses, obviously lead generation is the goal, but it can be more of a branding issue as well. So think about that when you're selecting what advertisers to approach for your card. You want to keep the restaurants, tanning salons, nail salons, pet supply, pizza places, breakfast places. You want to keep the majority of your card those types of businesses, and then just sprinkle in a few of the higher ticket, less used often businesses like contractors. Now, plumbers, I had a lot of success with plumbers because people tend to need a plumber more often than they need like siding on their house, right? I did mention some of the businesses just now that are prime targets. Pizza places, definitely number one. They're going to get a ton of coupons back on this. Pet supplies, local pet supply stores or farm supply stores, those are great. Restaurants, gyms are another great one. Plumbers, electricians, handymans. Let me take a look at the questions here. Oh, so Andy wants to know about the ad design. Yeah, no, in my case, the businesses do not design the ads. I included that in the price of their ad. And here a little further down, we're going to talk about working for a designer and how you plan all that. I find it's easier that way because most businesses, the reason that they don't do some businesses don't do direct mail because it's a lot of work. They have to design an ad, they have to put the mailing together. It's a lot of stuff for them. So if you can come to a business and you have a complete solution, and it's just like, look, you give me $500 and this goes out to 10,000 homes. We design your ad, you get the final say in what's in it. That's very appealing to a business. And when you look at the big picture, that's only about 5 cents per piece that they're paying for a mailing, which if you come to any business that has done direct mail before, they are going to instantly see what a deal that is. But even if they don't, you can kind of walk them through the process and explain the costs that would be involved if they had to do this themselves, right? And Brenda asks, what are my thoughts on food-only cards? I think theme cards are a great idea. There's two sides to that. One, it's good to be able to go to a business and say that it's an exclusive mailing. So one of the selling points I used in the beginning was, if I have one Chinese restaurant on this card, I am not going to have another Chinese restaurant on this card. So if you have enough of a variety in your area to do, one of every kind of restaurant, then I think it's a great idea. Here on Maui, I'm in a smaller market and I don't have that luxury. Okay, so prospecting methods. So my preferred prospecting method for this business was just a cold walk-in. And I know, there's a lot of people out there that aren't comfortable with that. But I think if you're looking to do this quickly and get some cash flow going right away, this is going to be your best and fastest bet. And as we're going to talk about here in a minute in the show and sell process, this mailing, this card is a really easy pitch to a business owner. I mean, you don't have to do any real fancy sales tactics. I had the best success with this. I also had some success with snail mail, and I would send out those sales letters. Normally what I would do is send them priority mail. So they were in a large envelope. So I'd put a sample card in, I'd throw the sales letter in and a flyer, and I would send that to the business owner. And that had some success, but by far the best success I had came with just walking in and talking to businesses. Email is another great way. You can send out some emails to try to get a hold of the person, maybe set up a meeting. I still think a face-to-face meeting at some point, they're going to want to see a sample of the card and all those types of things. BNI groups. So if you're not familiar with BNI groups, it's Business Networking International. And I would stay away from networking groups. I never really had any success with any networking group that was free to join. I found a lot of people in there had no budgets, and they were just there to kind of sell you whatever it was they were trying to do. The BNI groups are a little different. They do cost to join, but they're not super expensive. And the goal of all the members is to help each other out and refer you to other businesses. I am having success right now I'm a member of a local BNI group here, and I joined not too long ago. I'm having a lot of success with getting leads and clients through that group. And then appointment setter. This was another one that I had a lot of success with. This isn't something that I would recommend you do right away unless you have the budget for it. I added this after I had a few mailings under my belt. What I did was I put an ad on Craigslist for an appointment setter, and I offered to pay $15 an hour. All they had to do was call and set up appointments. I think I had 4 or 5 people apply. I interviewed them. I narrowed it down to 2, and I eventually picked one, and it worked out really well for me. She did a great job setting appointments, and then that really helped my lead flow, and I was able to do more cards in more areas. So I had a couple of cards going in different areas at the same time. Still, once again, if you need to generate income quickly, nothing beats just kind of walking in. When you walk into a business, you're going to really kind of go through the show and sell process. This is what makes this such a great starter business is there's not a lot to explain. It's pretty straightforward. And so you don't have to use any fancy sales techniques. You don't have to try to force people into buying something. You just kind of explain what you're offering. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, you move on to the next business. Because this is really valuable to a local business, and especially at the price points that we can do these mailings at. So if you have various ad sides, you can price them out anywhere from, $250, $175 for small ads to, $500 to $600 or $700 for large ads. So in my show and sell process, there were a couple of things. One is I really did the opposite of what I pictured most salesmen doing. My vision in my head was like a telephone book salesman, how they come in, they're all suited up and, it's Mr. Slick and nothing but high pressure sales tactics. And I really did the opposite of that. I went in dressed business casual. I asked for the owner. I told them that I was a local business owner myself. I had this idea to do this mailing to help promote some other businesses, and I can keep the cost down if we all do this together. And so I really kind of sold that co-op approach and really just like, hey, I'm doing this. I'd like you to be on board. We're all in this boat together. We're all local businesses owners here in the community trying to get along. that was sort of my first goal when I went in there, was to try to not be like all the other salespeople that walk in, and to just be more very straightforward in my approach. So I would show them the laminated cards, explain the concept that we're mailing to 10,000 upper to middle class homes. I would tell them what areas I was mailing to, and then I would show them the sample cards so they could see the quality of the mailing. I would also lay out the costs of what it would cost to do that on their own. If they try to mail a postcard, it's going to be 44, 48 cents some areas. So to mail 10,000, that's $4,400 right there, right? Just in postage. To be able to touch 10,000 homes for $500 is nothing, right? Peanuts. The only other thing that I can add about this kind of walk in and just going through the sales process and explaining it all out is you definitely kind of want to rehearse it, go over it with a partner or a friend or a wife, and even record yourself. That's a good technique too. Record yourself, play it back, listen. You just want this kind of real casual delivery. You don't want to sound salesy at all. It's really just a, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how many homes we're mailing. This is what the card looks like. This is the price. It's effective. Coupons work. Most businesses know coupons work. They want to do coupons. So you're already offering them something that in their mind they see as being successful. And then just explain it all to them, lay it out real straightforward. I always tell them that the way that I worked my business is they paid a 50% deposit to secure their spot. And then once they approved their final ad, they paid the other 50%. And that was really effective for me, because we both had, the business and I both kind of had skin in the game, and they knew I wasn't just going to take off, right? The other thing is, even when I was talking to businesses, if they weren't interested or, they didn't have the budget for it, which almost every business I talked to was really interested. A lot of them, though, just didn't have the budget, even though it was only $500. So I would always ask them if they knew anybody else that they thought would be good for the card. And I got quite a few good accounts that were on several mailings that way. That they were like, hey, I'm not really interested in this, but my buddy owns such and such restaurant. You should go talk to him. He's been looking for something. Referrals are the best way to go when it comes to selling. Does anybody have any questions about this process of walking in and kind of just explaining how it all works and all that stuff? So I'm going to assume that is a no. So once we find a business and they want to sign up, one of the things that I really like to do was work with the business on creating their offer. One of the things we would do with them is, I had a business that wanted, they said they wanted to be on the card, and then the coupon they wanted to offer was a $1 off coupon. I tried to talk them out of it, but it didn't work, and they ran that offer anyway, and of course, nobody came in. I would definitely work with your advertisers on helping them construct an offer that is going to set them up in the best position to get returns in. For them, it's going to be a balance. A lot of small businesses think, oh, wow, this is going to go out to 10,000 people. What if 10,000 people come flooding through my door? In all the mailings I did, that was never an issue. The highest performing coupon I ever had was probably the pizza place. They were getting about 300, 400 coupons a mailing, but most other places are not going to average near that much. They're only going to get maybe 10 to 30 coupons back, depending on what their offer is. So you want to make sure that you work with them to get a good offer. And so the first thing I always want to do is find out, what's the goal for them? Is it just new feet in the door? Do they just want to get as many people in as possible? Because they might want to do a more attractive offer, like a buy one, get one free, versus just doing a dollar amount off, if that's their goal. Is the goal to get people in to try them once, and they're willing to take a little bit of a loss just to get the people in the door? Or is the goal for them more like they have a pretty good client base and they just want to bring some people back that maybe haven't been in for a while? A lot of businesses will want to run offers that are like 10% off, 5% off. I always try to discourage them from doing this, because a person looking at the ad usually doesn't have any idea what that means. They have no idea what their prices are, so 10% off doesn't really translate. So I'd always steer businesses into doing, like, if their average purchase was like $50, I would have them do $5 off, because that's the same as 10%. So $5 off a purchase of $50 or more. That was what we did with the pet store that advertised a lot on my card, and that worked really great for them. One, it ensured, some people came in and didn't spend $50, so they didn't use the coupon, but they still came in. Other people came in and spent the $50 and got the deal. So you definitely just want to find out what their goal is and then kind of steer them to something that's going to look good on the card. People see that $5 off and they think, oh, that's like a $5 bill, versus 10% off they might not really relate to. In the Valpak folder, in all of the materials that I sent you, there's actually a file called Best Offers. It lists all of the best offers based on what type of business the person has. So it'll tell you what's the best type of offer for a restaurant, for a Chinese restaurant. What's the best type of offer for a barbecue restaurant? So I stuck that in there so you can get an idea, kind of guide them and help them. And that's based off of Valpak's research and experience. Does anybody have any questions about offers? All right, Brad has a question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's your question?
My question was, when you get your first advertiser, how do you keep them on the line until you get all 16? What if it takes weeks or even a month? Do they get mad at you while waiting all that time?
That is a great question. One thing, when you're talking to advertisers, I am very, very careful and very, very upfront about deadlines and mailing dates. I did have a sales guy that worked for me for a little bit, and a constant source of trouble for him and for me was that he would set definite deadlines. And the nature of this card is that it's a great deal for the advertiser. It's really inexpensive. It doesn't always, sometimes they get filled fast, sometimes they get filled slow. Part of the way around that is the 50% down and the 50% later. So you can do it either when when their final ad's approved, or you could wait and just go back and say, okay, a week before, or right before I go to print the card, I'm going to come around and collect the remainder. The one thing that I would never do is print the card. You don't ever print a card until you have all the money collected. So however you want to do it, whether it's, they pay 50% to hold their spot and then 50% when the ad is finalized or right before you go to print, I'm just very upfront with the advertisers in the beginning. When I tell them about the card and the whole process, I explain, now this is a co-op mailing piece, so this isn't going to go out until I fill all these spots. That's how I'm able to keep the cost so low, because it depends on there being ads in every spot. So I will keep you updated. Here's a target date that I'm looking to mail. And as that changes, I just go back and stay in touch with the advertisers. I never really had anybody that got upset or questioned that too much. And most of the time, it's the advertisers that first sign up that tend to wait the longest. Once again, I think the best approach is just to be upfront with the business about what's going on and just let them know. The goal is to mail this card in 5 weeks. If that changes, I'll be in touch. And most business owners are pretty understanding. And as long as you stay in touch with them, they'll work with you. And I never really had any issues with that. That idea of having the deadline does bring up another good point, and that is like a holiday card. Like a card that caused the most trouble for me was I decided to do a mailing just before Christmas. I wanted this mailing to go out before Christmas, and I thought, hey, this will be great. We'll have a holiday card. But that's exactly what happened. I got the majority of the card filled, and it was still a holdout for like 3 spots. And luckily, those spots filled at the very last minute before I could get it out before the holiday season. But it was a crunch. And I never did another holiday timed mailing after that. It was just too much pressure and there was too much out of your control. The way that the card is set up, if you have a 16 space card and you're charging $500 for the big spots and say $250 for the small spots, if you sell all 16 spots after your printing and mailing, you're going to have a couple of $1,000s in profit. So even to go to print with one ad space missing, I mean, that can be $500 off of your bottom line. So you're not talking about a huge, based on how many cards you can do. Like, I was very hard pressed to put a card out every 30 days. So it usually took about a month and a half to put a card out. That's not a couple of $1,000s isn't a lot to live off of each month. It's important, that you're upfront with the businesses about your time frame and you stay in contact with them. And then you just really got to hustle. That's the one thing about this card is it's really about contacting as many people as you can, as quickly as you can, and just going and going and going until your ad space is filled. Did that answer your question well enough, Brad?
Yeah, that answered my question well, and I have another one.
Okay.
If that's
All
okay.
right. Fire away. Yeah, fire away.
One more.
How many questions as you guys
My other
want to
question.
ask?
My other question was kind of in this realm. Did the same advertisers use you each month? I mean, were they giving you $500 every month, or did you have to constantly get new people all the time?
That's another really good question. I did have a core base of advertisers that were in every month, and then I had to fill those other spots around them. The pizza place was in every month. The gym was in every month. The pet supply place was in every month. And there were a couple of other places. I think towards when I was really doing the mailings, one right after the other, I had about half a card was usually repeat business, people that had done the mailer the month before and were on the next one, right? But you are going to be filling that card around because, it was my experience that some businesses it was just really great for. They got a lot. Other businesses, they only saw a few and they didn't think it was worth it and those kinds of things. It really depends on the business type. I think if you can keep your card, if you remember what we talked about with card texture, so if you can keep your card with that mixture of restaurants, restaurants do really well on the card. So if you can get a lot of restaurants, you're going to increase your chances. And nail salons, they do really well with the card. I had a nail salon that was on the card every month. So if you can keep those types of businesses on the card, then you're going to see more repeat, you'll get more repeat. And then also I would offer incentives. So if it's a pizza place, you could say, well, look, you can be on one mailing for $500, but if you'll be on two mailings, then I'll cut the price to $450 or whatever if they pre-buy. The only danger you run with that is you just want to make sure if you're pre-buying that you're going to do those mailings. I did have to do probably two mailings where I didn't have 16 advertisers on the card. One, I never did anything like put your ad here on the card. I would either find a business owner that I wanted to get and I would offer them a free mailing. Like if there was a business and I was trying to get them on the card and I wasn't having much luck and I knew I wasn't going to sell that last spot, you could either go and discount the last spot heavily and try to get whatever money you can for it. I didn't really do that because I didn't want that to get back to other advertisers because that's not really fair to the guy who's paying $500 if the last guy only pays, $250 and he has the same size ad. So I would either donate it to something like the animal shelter, like I'd go to the animal shelter and say, hey, I have this spot. Would you like to take it? Do it as like a charitable donation. Or I would take an advertiser that had been on the card and make their ad bigger, maybe rearrange it a little so that they had more ad space. But that only happened a couple of times. I was very determined to fill the cards and keep my profit margins where they needed to be, right? So I only had to do that a couple of times. Okay, so it covered all that. All right, any other questions about the advertisers or anything like that? So now I know Brad is a graphic designer himself. I am not a graphic designer. I have no art skills whatsoever. So I had to outsource the design of my card and my ads. The important thing about finding a good designer is, obviously you have to keep cost in mind, but you don't just want to try to go with the cheapest person you can find, because the ad designs and the speed at which they get done and the look of your card is going to have a big impact on whether your card does well or you get repeat business. Although you want to keep price in mind, you also just want to make sure you have a great designer. So I do not recommend going to places like a website called Fiverr.com where people will design things for $5. I do not recommend going to places like that. I don't recommend using someone overseas if you can avoid it, because communication is key. Sometimes advertisers come in at the last second and you're going to need a job done on an express time frame, and you want to be able to get a hold of your designer and know that they're going to answer you back and that they're going to be there and they're going to get it done. Communication is the key, kind of what I'm talking about there, right? You want somebody who you're going to be able to communicate with and reach when you need to reach them. When you find a designer, you want to be very clear on revisions, because some business owners, like, they see that ad and then they just, every time you show it to them, they want to change. So you need to be clear when you talk to the business owners about how many revisions they get. And then you also need to be clear with your designer on how many revisions she'll do. Make sure you're clear both ways on how many revisions you get and how often they can change things. And then you want to make sure that the designer provides you everything. All your finals need to be print ready. And I used a lady named Kate. She's out of Ohio for my design and my cards. That's her email address right there. If you want to reach out to her, I think right now she charges $400 to do a complete card, designing all 16 ads. She's really good about revisions. She's not really nitpicky about that, as long as you're not just like doing a million revisions on every ad. And she does really great work. She communicates fast. So I would definitely recommend her. There are other good people out there. Brad owns a company called Digital Crayon. I don't know if he's done things like this, but I'm sure if you wanted to reach out to him, you might be able to talk him into doing some ads if he's not doing them all for himself. Any questions on a designer? Andy, what if you can't fill the card that amount? Refund or defer? Oh, just to cover this up with the empty spaces on the card. I would try to offer whatever you can. If you can defer to the next month or something like that for the advertiser, but I would definitely, as you're building the card, keep some cash flow aside so that if you do have to refund somebody, it's not an issue. You want to keep your reputation on this way out in the open, because there are a lot of people that go around and do this type of business that just show up, take the money, and then people never see them again. So you want to have the best reputation you can when dealing with your clients and stuff like that. So, if they want a refund, just refund them. But, I never really had to do that. Most people were, as long as I communicated with them and was upfront with them, they were more than willing to work with me. I think I got another question here. Since 8 ads are on the front and 8 on the back, doesn't that cause an overlap conflict? Meaning when you cut out one coupon on the front, you ruin the ad on the back. Yeah, Brad, so the way that I get around that is if you look at the files that are the card that's in your files I sent you, every ad has a size, but then inside the ad is a smaller coupon to be cut out. So the way that I had Kate do that, you have the client's ad, and then inside their ad, we would make a smaller area that they would cut out to bring in to redeem. And I just made sure that no two cutout parts lined up. So when they cut out an ad on one side, it does cut out a piece of the ad on the other, but it doesn't cut out the other advertiser's coupon. And that's something explained to the businesses too, because sometimes they'll ask about that. Now, most people will cut out the whole ad anyway. I've had that happen. Most people, I found out, just brought the whole card. because the card, they would just fold it up and stick it in their car or whatever, and they would just bring the whole card in and show it to the business owner. So I never had any business owners complain about that or any issues like that. But we did do our part by trying to make the smaller cutout coupons not line up on the card. And by the way, you guys will get, everybody on the training today will get this mind map. I will send that to you in a separate email after we're done in the next couple of days. So printing. So when we print the card, there's a couple things you need to know. One, I printed my cards on 16-point cardstock, so it's nice and thick. You want it to have some weight to it. You definitely don't want it to be something that people can crease. It just gives the card a real good feel when you show it to the advertisers. I used UV coating, which gives it a really nice glossy look, but I think it's better than glossy. It just looks nice, and it just makes the ads really pop. And when you get your cards printed, there is an option from the printer to bundle or not to bundle your cards. And I highly recommend that wherever you print your cards, get them bundled. They'll usually bundle them in 50s or 100. So when we get to the next tab about mailing, I'll kind of explain how the mailing process works. But when you take them to the post office, they need to be bundled. So my first two mailings, I just had the cards printed, and my wife, and my two daughters just sat around the front room and bundled them into packets of 50. But it doesn't cost that much more to have them bundled, and it's worth it. So just have them bundled. 50s or 100s, either one works well. Now, to have the cards printed, if you do not have a printing source, I used a company here called Art to Print Hawaii, and that's their website and their phone number. The owner, his name is Ron Kanar. He's a great guy. If you just call him and tell him, what you're doing, he'll usually work with you and can get you a really low price. Another option would be to use Jake. He also goes by the name Bob Ross. He's the guy that originally introduced me to this idea of doing these cards as a business, and he has a website, printingforsupercheap.com. You can go on there, and he has really good rates too. I was in kind of a tough situation because I'm in Hawaii and on Maui, so it cost me more to I had to have the cards printed on the mainland and then shipped to Hawaii, so that raised my costs. And that's why I didn't use Jake, because I could get them done less expensive from Art to Print Hawaii. You might want to check around with a couple of, always check around, get a few quotes, and then go with somebody that you know is going to do a quality job and hit your deadline. And then if you want to print them yourself, there is a company out there called 4over.com. Now they're a trade printer, so you'll have to fill out an application and they'll approve you or not approve you. But if they do approve you, then you get wholesale pricing on printing. So that's a good way to kind of do it yourself. Let's see. So we covered those. So any questions about printing? All right. Brad's question is, the post office here in Florida had issues when sending UV coated flyers because their machines couldn't mark them. Did you have an issue with this? So no, I didn't, because Brad, when you do the mailing, you're going to do it every door direct mail. And with every door direct mail, the postcards do not go through the sorters. You don't have to worry about any of that. You're going to print the mailing indices on the cards yourself, and you'll see that in the files that I sent you. Those mailing indices are already in the design there. You print them all yourself. The post office doesn't have to send them to the sorter. That's why the postage is so cheap. They basically just throw them on the trucks and then put one in every mailbox. So, and we're going to get to that here in just a second. The Every Door Direct Mail program. So you'll want to look up Every Door Direct Mail on Google. It's a program by the post office. It allows you to mail your cards for 16 cents a piece versus the normal postcard rate of 44 cents. There are some requirements. One, your piece has to be bigger than 6 by 11, and it has to have that special postage on it that you print on the cards. As long as you do that, you get 16 cents a piece, which is really inexpensive. So to mail 10,000 cards, it's going to cost you $1,600 in mailing. And what you want to do when you go to the Every Door direct mail area of the post office website is you're looking for the Every Door direct mail retail. So with a retail license, all you do is put in your information, and you do not have to have a special permit. You can only mail 5,000 pieces a day with the retail. You'll have to take half of your mailing down one day and half of your mailing down the next. But basically what you're going to do is the postcards are going to come to your house from the printer. You're going to divide the postcards up into all the routes that you want to mail. And then you're going to put paperwork with them, and then you're just going to go drop those off at the post office. Every Door direct mail, the post office has been really bad about getting training out there about it. So when you go to the post office, they might not really know what they're doing. So make sure you read up on the website. I don't have time to go into a lot of the details of it, but they have pretty good documentation, and I put a lot of documentation in the files I sent you on how to do that. And then if you want to file for a permit, you can. I believe there's some fees for the permit. It just allows you to send out more than 5,000 pieces a day, and you can do specific addresses. But I never use that. I just stuck with the retail, just doing the basic, and they have a tool that will help you pick out the routes and all that stuff. So, and there's a PDF in those files that'll walk you through how to do all that. Now, when it comes to choosing routes, I do use another tool besides the Every Door direct mail tool, and that is melissadata.com. You can get a free account there, and it will allow you to go in and just type in a zip code, and you'll get to see some general statistics on the area, like household income, how many people per household, stuff like that. So that's a real valuable resource for figuring out what areas you want to mail. You want to really hit those upper class, those middle to upper class neighborhoods and even the nicer neighborhoods. That'll help in your sales process too, because when you tell the owners that you're mailing such and such area and they know that that's a wealthy area, then they're going to be more on board. Melissa Data is what I would use to kind of look for where I wanted to mail. And then the Every Door direct mail tool is where you're actually going to go and select your mailing. Or any questions about anything I've talked about so far? As we're good, and we will talk about add-on services for more profits. As you kind of go around and start talking to businesses and selling them on this mailing idea, there are a couple of services that are just sort of a natural to go along with this. One is printing, and I got quite a few jobs where maybe somebody didn't buy an ad on the card, but they needed something printed. I was able to call my printer and see how much and do a markup, and I got a few printing jobs that way where I kind of brokered the deal. So other things are like website, you can add a website to the mailing. If you start a website to go along with your card, then you can sell listings on the directory website. So they can have a listing on the website and they're on the mailing for the card. And you can have coupons and things like that. I did do this for a while, and I never really got any traction. To be honest, I don't think I ever sold a listing on the website. But to where it really did help me was I would upload a bunch of businesses to the website, and then when my appointment setter, she would call the business and she would say, "Hi, I'm calling from Dakine Coupons, and you have a free listing on our website, and we just want to verify that we have all your information correct." She would get all their information, and then she would say, even though you have a free listing, we do offer a premium listing on the website, and we have a mailer that goes out to 10,000 upper class, middle and upper class households here in the area. Would you be interested in finding out more about that? I had a lot of success with businesses wanting to hear more, and that's how she would set the appointment. I wouldn't worry about getting a website up and going before you do a mailing. Do your first mailing and get some cash flow in first. but a little directory site that you can use in that way, where you can just set it up and sort of use it as your foot in the door to set up appointments, is a really good idea. Logo design is something you can sell. Some companies don't have logos. If they don't have a logo, you can pitch them on a logo design, and then I would just use Logo Nerds and then add on an additional fee. So, $75, I would do a logo design for them, and I would pay $37 to Logo Nerds and pocket the 40. Printing is the same kind of deal. You can work with your printer, get some pricing, and then just do a little bit of a markup and pocket the difference. Copywriting, if any of you out there do any type of sales writing or anything like that, this is a great avenue in for that, because you're already in this advertising marketing mode with the clients, and you can talk to them about some of the other marketing materials that they use, and maybe you can do a rewrite. Consulting, I've gotten quite a few consulting clients from the card. One of the things when I talk to businesses, like after they do a mailing, I kind of start to tell them a little more about what I do and what I offer, and give them some recommendations, and start to build that relationship. And then they're more likely to come to me when they need something marketing and printing wise. SMS, the card does work well for offering, like, if you have an SMS service, you can offer a redemption. Like, people can text in a number. They can cut the coupon out on the card, or they can text in a number. I did this with the gym that was on my card for a while, and we got some good redemptions that way. So if you know about SMS and have a system to deliver text messages, that's a good add-on service as well. And then sponsored cards, or also theme cards, like Brenda mentioned earlier, are a great way to go. One of the ways, insurance agents. So insurance agents, I think, are good if you can find an agent that does residents and businesses. So the idea here, and there's a little document in your file package that kind of covers this approach. You go to the agent, and the agent sponsors the mailing. They pay for everything, and they give their clients free ads. And then one half of the card is all the branding for the agent. So on one side of the card is all the agent's branding for residential insurance, and on the other side, they've given their business clients free advertising. And so it's kind of a win-win for them. With some agents, you can promote it as a way for them to get new business. They go to businesses that they don't currently provide insurance for, and they offer to give them a free ad on this card just to start to build a relationship. And so that's the basic gist of how that approach works. You could do this too with attorneys, CPAs, shopping centers, car dealerships, also like a chamber of commerce sponsored mailing, B&I groups. Those would all be great ways to go in and do a sponsored mailing where they cover the costs, and then you don't have to try to go out and find individual businesses, right? They're all in one group. Any questions about any add-on services? We got a question from Cameron. How many locations do you include on one card? Well, I guess, do you mean like areas? Like how many areas do you mail? 10,000 residences are the biggest mailings that I did, and I tried to keep them all in those upper middle class areas. So it didn't matter to me where we kind of went. I tried to stay in a general area. I mean, obviously I'm on Maui, so I have a limited space. You might want to pick like a target area and then just sort of do a radius around that area. Pick fewer routes in a wider selection of areas, or more routes in a smaller selection of areas. I think you could kind of do it either way, Cameron. The thing is getting those areas that businesses recognize as middle and upper middle class areas. I think you're probably better off if you pick, like a town and kind of mail around it. I mean, I wouldn't mail like way sections off, because you need to mail places that are closest to the businesses you're going to target. Like maybe there's an area in your town where we have this here on Maui where there's a lot of restaurants and stuff. So you might want to look around that where all those restaurants are located, and then try to find the middle class and upper class neighborhoods close to where the businesses are that you're going to target to be on the card. And then that way, when you walk in and you say, hey, I'm going to mail this area and that area, the business owners know that that's close to where they're at and that they have a client base there. So yeah, so I would definitely do, you said fewer routes in more areas or more routes in fewer areas. I would definitely do more routes in fewer areas. Pick an area of where you're more, start with the businesses that you're going to target to advertise, and then look at what areas are close to them and see if you can find areas close to the businesses that you're going to be approaching to be on the card. I think that will work the best. Pitfalls to avoid. So there are a couple of pitfalls, and we talked about some of these earlier. One, this business is great for generating cash flow, but also cash flow can be an issue because you get half of the money up front and then half when you go to print, and you just want to make sure that you're covered in your expenses and things like that. I would definitely keep an eye on what you're taking in versus what you have now versus what you're taking in and all that kind of stuff, and try not to jump ahead of yourself. I've seen some people get in trouble with this business where they think, oh, well, I know that once I sell all the spots on the card, I'm going to have an extra $1,000. So I'll just go ahead and take the $1,000 out of what I have now. Then when trouble comes up or problems happen, you're stuck. I definitely wouldn't be spending the money before you've collected it, I guess is my point there. Deadlines, we kind of talked about this. You want to avoid definite deadlines as much as you can. I always talk in terms to clients about a general, a target date. I would always say things like this. I'm shooting to have the mailing out in 5 weeks, but that can change because this is co-op and sometimes they feel fast and sometimes they feel slow. So as long as you can be flexible with me, I'll keep you updated on when we're mailing and all that stuff. Holiday mailings, my recommendation is, unless you're going to start them really, really early and give yourself plenty of time to fill all those spots, I really kind of stayed away from holiday mailings. Once again, you have a deadline and you can get into a pinch unless you have a plan for empty spots. If you have a plan and you budget it in and you're okay, because normally you're going to fill all the spots except for maybe one or two. So it usually comes down to one or two spots that for some reason it just seems like it takes forever to sell those last few spots. So if you kind of work that into your plan, then you could do a holiday mailing and be prepared for that. Or a holiday mailing might be the best thing to go and approach somebody for doing something sponsored, right? So that maybe you only have to worry about filling half the card because the other half of the card is taken. And then we talked already a little bit about what to do with empty space. Things like giving them away to charity is a good one. I don't know that maybe to potential clients, you could do a first mailing free type deal. But mainly, you could also make somebody else's ad bigger. That's another way to deal with an empty space. In the end, it's really empty spaces are only going to happen if you're not out there every day trying to fill those cards up and doing what you can to get them all filled. So finding leads. So here's just a pretty big list of this over here. Places where I look to get ideas of businesses to approach. These are all great places to look for potential advertisers. If somebody's already spending on advertising, they're more likely to go with you. Racks of publications, bulletin boards, shopper guides, Valpak. Speaking of Valpak, one thing I did want to mention is the Valpak reps are out a lot selling local businesses. One of the approaches I use to position my card as better than Valpak is that if you ever get a Valpak, it comes in a sealed envelope. You have to open it. You have to go through all the offers. A lot of them are just big ticket items. Most of them are not like restaurant coupons and things like that. The nice thing about this card is that first, when it comes in the mailbox, it's not folded. There's only 16 advertisers, so it's real easy for somebody to look at both sides of the cards and immediately see what's on there. we have a higher open rate. Valpak is always bragging about their open rate, Well, our open rate is 100% on the card because there's nothing to open. You just have to look at it, right? So that's a good selling point, especially if somebody's been approached by the Valpak people. That's something to keep in mind. TV programming guides, real estate publications, ads on shopping carts, grand opening or under new management signs, Chamber of Commerce, local newspapers, anybody who's advertising in the local paper can drink there, city hall or county courthouses. Check with your city hall or county courthouse, look for any new businesses. New businesses are good prospects for this type of thing. The only thing to keep in mind with businesses that are new is they get hit with a lot of people wanting them to advertise. So this is really where you got to kind of be on you're different from the other advertisers type deal and just explain it and hopefully and get them on board. Shoppers guides, church bulletins. Church bulletins are a great source for people, hidden little gems, right? People advertise in those that can be good prospects. Phone book, high school sports schedule, ad placements at local restaurants, coupon books, and then you can search online. And I have a list of some coupon related websites that you can go to and look at for businesses in your area. And if they're advertising on here, then you can approach them. And then also infofree.com is like a list reseller. So you can go in there, and that's another great way to find prospects for the card. You can just target, restaurants in your area, and it will give you a list of all the contact information and owners' names and stuff like that if they have it. So that's a good resource for also prospecting. Does anybody have any questions on anything we covered? Is there anything I can make more clear? So Brad has a question. Did you stay in one city at a time with businesses, or did you do multiple, like say Boca Raton and Deerfield Beach on the card? I targeted different areas. So here on Maui, like I live in Kihei, and then another city is Kahului. So I would do a mailing in Kihei, and then I would do a mailing in Kahului. And what I would do is I would go through Kihei and get a mailing filled, and while that card was being printed, I would start a mailing in Kahului, and then I would just kind of go back and forth between the areas. And that seemed to work out the best for me. So I would definitely, pick an area. Like you could do a card in Boca Raton, you could do one in Deerfield Beach, you could do one in West Palm Beach. I kind of focus on areas like that. See, Andy, excellent overview. Oh, thanks, Andy. Appreciate that. Oh, do you mean both? Oh, Brad says he means both on one card. Yeah, you could definitely do them both on one card to open up your prospecting area. Like you could mail. So if you're going to do a 10,000 mailing, you could mail 5,000 to Deerfield Beach and 5,000 to Boca Raton. And then you could go and just approach businesses in both areas and say you're getting coverage here in the local area and then also in this area that's right next to us. And that brings up something that I didn't mention in the training is you don't have to do a 10,000 piece mailing. You can do a 5,000 piece mailing. You could do a 2,500 mailing. Usually your breaks on printing come at like 2,500, 5,000, 10,000. 10,000 has the biggest bang. Like you're going to get the most for your ads, 10,000 piece mailing. But I did do one 2,500 mailing, and I just charged $175 for every space. I just needed some quick cash. So I filled that card really fast, and I only charged $175, and I think I pocketed like $1,500 in profit. It was really inexpensive. I mean, anything you can get to a business for under $200. It was a real easy sell. Then I just sent it out to 2,500 homes in a particular area, and the advertisers were happy, and I was happy. Any other questions so far? Ron says this is worth way more than the $100. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate that. Cameron, great info, Tom. Thanks for the invite. All right, Brad. Thanks, dude. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, this will be last call. We're going to wrap it up. And I want to thank everybody for coming today. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me inside the Entrepreneur Empire group or send me an email. I'm here to help. I'll do my best to answer your question or help any way I can. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Aloha, everybody, and thanks for coming.